Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
It's Friday, which means it's time for Foofaraw Friday. This is the stuff that's caught my attention this past week that kind of got me a little off kilter. So I make a list of things that I need to comment on Fridays. Don't know what else to call it. They're not all complaints. They're just simply things that I felt the need to think about. So one of the recurring themes, and this pops up from time to time depending on the setting, but as many of you know, I am an attorney. I'm an attorney in the state of Michigan. And that's good in that it has, allowed me to make a living for 29 years. But the downside, of course, is people crack attorney jokes, and people also have preconceived notions about attorneys. One of the reasons I do this channel is that I'm hoping to eliminate some of those preconceived notions. One of the reasons I wear t-shirts. But for some odd reason, people seem to think that attorneys also have like special privileges or superpowers or something. So for instance, there's a whole list of things that people tell me. They say, Steve, that only worked for you because you're an attorney. Now, it's true. If I sued somebody and I got a better result than you got if you weren't an attorney and you filed the lawsuit, I'd say, yeah, I got a better result because I'm an attorney. I know how to file a lawsuit. I've mentioned before that I got pulled over a couple of years ago by a police officer who decided not to write me a ticket. I described all the steps I took to make the police officer's job easier, and I like to think that played into it. I've now had 20 or 30 people say, Steve, you're an attorney. Of course you didn't get a ticket. Number one, you can't tell by looking at me that I'm an attorney. Number two, I didn't tell the police officer I'm an attorney. Excuse me, sir, I'm an attorney. Just to let you know, you better not write me a ticket. That wouldn't work. I hate to tell people this, but you should know, if you were to ask police officers, professions of people in general they don't like, many of them say they don't like attorneys. Because a police officer goes to work and he's testifying in a court and some defense attorney gets up and cross-examines him, tries to make him look stupid. Cops don't like attorneys, generally speaking. And so I've asked several people, what makes you think that he knows I'm an attorney? And they go, of course he knows you're an attorney. It's in their system. Okay, the police do have a system where they can run your driver's license and up will pop your driving record. It doesn't say, oh, by the way, here's their profession, here's how much money they made last year, here's what they describe themselves in their tax returns as doing, here's their social media, here's their YouTube channel. If you want, you can take a look at their Instagram account. You can also take a look at their TikTok videos. No, it's a driving record. My driving record does not say, beware, this man is an attorney. Don't write him a ticket. I know attorneys that get tickets. I've gotten tickets before. So the fact that I didn't get a ticket that night had nothing to do with the fact that I'm an attorney. The police officer had no idea. He did not ask me. Did not ask me what I do for a living. I've also been told now repeatedly that the reason my insurance claim went smoothly on my Explorer, I got rear-ended about a month ago, the reason it went so easily was that I'm an attorney. I've had several people say, Steve, that it wouldn't go that smoothly for a non-attorney. Why? Do you think when I signed up with my insurance company, I said, by the way, I'm an attorney. I'm buying insurance now. Can you please put that in my policy that I'm an attorney? They never asked me what I did for a living. They pulled my driving record, which doesn't say that I'm an attorney, by the way. See above. And I had several people say, but Steve, they must know you're an attorney. Okay, here's the deal. And I'll now tell you this because I think I can tell you this safely. I purposely did not tell the people at the body shop that I'm an attorney. You know why? The body shop was affiliated with the car dealer. That car dealer I've sued probably 50 to 100 times. I've sued that dealer many, many times. Now, the guy in the body shop would not have been privy to that most likely because of the fact I wasn't suing the body shop particularly. I was suing the sales end of the dealership. But if that dealership found out that there's a car being worked on their premises that was owned by a guy who'd filed 50 to 100 lawsuits against them, I don't think that would help my repair. I think that would hurt it. So there goes that. And then I've also had several people suggest that has something to do with the story I told about the restaurants. I've told about crazy stories of things that happen to me in restaurants. I don't know why that would matter. I would suspect that if they found out you're an attorney, just for the fun of it, they'd mess with your food. But I never told the police officer at the side of the road after I get hit that I was a police as an attorney. I also did not tell the woman who hit me And because I had several people say, Steve, oh my God, that must have been horrible for her to understand that she just rear-ended an attorney. I didn't tell her. She's already crying. It wasn't going to get her to stop crying to say, oh, by the way, I'm an attorney. I'm not a monster. I'm an attorney. I mentioned last week jokingly, and this is absolutely true, and I predicted it, that the second I mentioned Bigfoot and the fact that I believe that Bigfoot is not a scientific thing, that I would have several Bigfoot aficionados check in and complain to me through back channels, i.e. email. And I said that, so add them to the list of, sovereign citizens don't like me because I've always debunked the driver's license stuff. The flat earthers don't like me because I mentioned the guy who launched the rocket that came back to Earth. And then, of course, mentioning Bigfoot. And I had a guy email me, he goes, Steve, I thought you were smart. And by the way, anytime you start an email with, I thought you were smart, indicates that you're not as smart as you think you are and you don't understand how arguments work. And he said, Steve, I can send you to a website of a guy who can explain to you Bigfoot. And I wrote back, I go, why can't you just explain it to me? And he goes, no. He goes, go check out this guy's website. So he gave me a website to a guy who's a hunting guide who doesn't mention Bigfoot on his entire page. So I wrote back and I said, I just checked his website. There's nothing on there about Bigfoot. What are you even talking about? And he goes, well, let's put it this way. He goes, you say that they've never found a body of a Bigfoot. And I go, yeah. And he goes, show me an astronomer who's found a body of a dead star, dead planet. Number one, they have. Number two, we know where the live planets are. You can look up in the sky and see them. But anyways, then the guy got mad at me. So, yeah, I'm. It's not a terrible loss that someone who thought I was smart is no longer my friend. I've mentioned one of the ongoing arguments that people have, and I don't know why this is such a sticking point for so many people. Police officer pulls you over side of the road, walks up to your car, goes, you know why I pulled you over? You can go, I have no idea. I don't know. You tell me. If he says to you anything beyond that, I've had several people say you can claim your right to remain silent, just stay silent. Clam up. Don't talk to the police officer. If you want to, you can. Watch how that plays out. It won't help you any. But you can do that if you want to. And I've had several people say, but Steve, if he asks you your name or he wants to see your driver's license, that's a violation of your Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. And courts have ruled repeatedly that it's not. But I've jokingly said, why would that be a violation of the Fifth Amendment for you to reach in your wallet and hand him your driver's license? Why would that be a violation of your Fifth Amendment rights? And I've had several people say, well, Steve, at that point, you are incriminating yourself and you have the right to remain silent. And your driver's license is like a fact, okay? And the fact is true whether or not you give it to them. If they know who you are, they can go run your name anyways. But be that as it may, it's not, but no big deal. But I had several people say, but Steve, I have the constitutional right to remain silent, And that actually is what confuses a lot of people because that's not what's in the Constitution. It doesn't say that. And I jokingly said to somebody, I said, I'm just curious, can you show me where it says that you have the right to remain silent in the Constitution? The guy goes, yeah, the Fifth Amendment. I go, yeah, but where in the Fifth Amendment does it say it? He goes, it's the Fifth Amendment. And, you can look this stuff up, people. This ain't that hard. If you look up Constitution, you'll get a site that has the full text of the Constitution. Buzz to the bottom and read the Fifth Amendment. It does not say right to remain silent. It says no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. Compelled in a criminal case to be a witness against himself. And the courts have consistently ruled that at the side of the road, being asked your name is not asking you to be a witness against yourself in a criminal case. And so I cut that quote out and pasted it right into my response and said, that's what it actually said. And the guy wrote back, no, it says right to remain silent. I don't think they teach critical thinking skills anymore in schools. They must not. Because anytime somebody says to me and says, Steve, you understand that you misquoted that? I don't argue and say, no, I didn't. The first thing it is, I go and look. I might have made a mistake. I go take a look. And if you go and take a look at the Fifth Amendment, you'll see it says no person shall, blah, 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 nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. That's what it says. Go read it. So when you answer back, say, no, it says right to remain silent. All it tells me is you're basically saying, Steve, I didn't go look. I'm just arguing to argue. So we were talking about phone calls being recorded with attorneys and their clients. And someone posted and said, I'm in the telecom industry. Every domestic phone call in the U.S. is recorded in its entirety by the phone companies for quality control. He goes, it's not admissible in court, but they're all recorded. Do you know how much server space, how much memory that would take up to record every single phone call? And by the way, that'd be a violation of the law. So I wrote back and said, do you have a cite for the law that allows them to do that? Otherwise, they get sued into oblivion. No response. Then in that case, why do they bother saying this call will be recorded for quality control in some cases when they're already doing it? I'm thinking now that some people are actually saying crazy stuff to see if they'll get into the Friday show. Please don't do that. But if you do it so well that I can't tell the difference, maybe you deserve, I don't know. So I did a story about price gouging due to recent events in the news. And I had several people say, but Steve, economics, blah, blah, blah. I said right in both of the pieces I did on price gouging, I said there are arguments on both sides from the economic viewpoint. I am simply talking about the legal aspects of it. And economists will say that if you allow price gouging, what will happen is when supply drops, price skyrockets, people will jump into the void to fill that gap, and then the supply will restabilize. That's the thinking. And I said that in my video. And I had a guy who said, Steve, you apparently don't understand economics. Price gouging is good for the economy. And he attached an article, which I've read. It's the same article everyone always attaches about price gouging is good, which explains what I just told you, but says it in this much words instead of the 3 sentences I just gave you. And so I've read the article before. And so I wrote back to the guy and I said, well, I'm curious, does he address the fact that in this instance, recent events in the news, many of the shortages were caused by the price gougers? In other words, somebody goes and buys everything up, then says, I'm going to raise prices now because there's a shortage. That's not addressed in the article. So I said, did this guy address that? And the guy goes, read the article. I had read the article. I was asking a rhetorical question. My point was that that's often how we have a discussion, is you say this and I ask you a question to make you think about what you just said. And the funny part is that when the guy said read the article, it indicated to me he hadn't read it. So there are people out there in an attempt to be smart will actually find an article with a headline that's grabbing and take that and say, read that article. You read it. Don't post it and tell me to read it if you haven't read it. I have read the article. I've read the article a dozen times because people keep posting it anytime I mention economics and price gouging. Okay, I've taken classes in economics. I've read books in economics. I've read that article. I had somebody the other night log on to the video I did on brake checking. And I mentioned that brake checking is illegal. The idea that you stomp on your brakes to teach the person behind you a lesson. Okay? You're allowed to hit your brakes. And in most states, if you hit your brakes and the person behind you rear ends you, it's usually their fault. But I say usually. So for instance, you're driving on the road and somebody jumps in front of you and stomps on the brakes to teach you a lesson. That's illegal. Probably improper lane usage, possibly careless driving, maybe reckless driving. But it's wrong. I had somebody 58 times go through the comment section on that video and type, and then I realize they cut it and pasting, but over and over again, the exact same statement. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's trying to be controversial. The person in the back is always at fault in a rear end collision. This guy's just trying to be controversial. Doesn't know what he's talking. 58 times? Do you know how many times I had to sit there and hit delete to make those go away? Oh, wait, 58. Hey, if you're going to spend all night spamming my page, I'm going to spend all morning de-spamming it. Is de-spam a word? It ought to be. Trademark. Lehto Co. Enterprises. And then finally, my eye's getting better. I had a subconjunctival hemorrhage. And just I'm getting good at saying it, my eye is getting better. And they said it would take 7 to 14 days to get better. it's pretty much better. There's still a little bit there, but it's I'm on the road to recovery, so I'm happy. My subconjunctival hemorrhage is going away. I got a strange and convoluted email from somebody who said, Steve, you keep mispronouncing that condition you have. And he said, it's actually subconjunctival. Subconjunctival. Like you pronounce the I in the word as if it's the word I, the letter I. You pronounce the letter I like it's the word I, E-Y-E. Subconjunctival. Subconjunctival. And I'm trying to do that. It doesn't sound right. But then I continue reading in his email and he goes, now there's a second pronunciation that's acceptable, which is the one you're using. But he spent 3 paragraphs explaining how I'm wrong because the first pronunciation is subconjunctival. And I'm using the second subconjunctival. And I have to tell people that I, as an expert and a man who owns many dictionaries, I own a lot of dictionaries, that first of all, the English language is always evolving. But second of all, dictionaries will often point out that there are alternate pronunciations to words. So for instance, the car, I always look the wrong way. This car has a turbine engine in it, Turbine. Now, in Europe, many people will say turbine, but they also say lift and torch for elevator and flashlight. But they say turbine. So about once a month, someone will say, Steve, you mispronounced that word. It's turbine. And I go, oh, like a turbine engine. And they go, no, it's an engine, but it's a turbine. And if you look in a dictionary says there's 2 pronunciations. Pick one, turbine or turbine. In America, we say turbine. England, they say turbine. So subconjunctival or subconjunctival are alternate pronunciations. They're both correct. So to write me a long email and explain how I used the pronunciation that you don't like, despite the fact that the one I'm using is correct, is actually a large waste of electrons, because I think that was an email. But I guess my point is that, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy many of these discussions, but I'm more baffled as to how people think there's a right and a wrong on something when it's a preference. So if you want to say, hey, Steve, I was curious. I'd always heard subjunctival, and you said subjunctival. And I went and looked it up, and it turns out we're both right. That, to me, is an entertaining email. Send that. It's a kind of minutia that powers my world. I like that stuff. But to spend 3 paragraphs explaining how I'm wrong, and then saying, oh, by the way, you actually might be right, but I disagree with that. Well, you're not disagreeing with me. You're disagreeing with a dictionary that said you're wrong. And they buy their ink by the barrel. Never pick a fight with those people. So there you go. That is all the stuff that got on my radar this week as I was locked down due to recent events in the news. Foofaraw Friday. Hope you enjoyed it. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. What is now proved was once only imagined.